Okay, we welcome everybody here to the Utah County Boundary Commission. We hope you feel welcome. We're going to try to go through this agenda as it's stated here as closely as we can. We might divert a little bit, but we're going to try to follow that. So if you have a copy of that agenda, you can kind of follow along. So our first agenda item, we have one of our at-large citizen members that I was in touch with just a handful of weeks ago. That particular member has recently moved to Salt Lake County. So I would entertain a motion from this body to strike number one, since he is not legal in serving on this board.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a motion from Mayor Hunsaker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mayor Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Agenda item number 2. This is approve or reject Paul Raymond as a member of the Utah County Boundary Commission. This particular seat will serve, or excuse me, that his term will expire on January 3rd of 2023.
Mr.
So
Chairman, that's January 2nd, 2023. It's the first Monday in January of that year, which
Okay.
would be January 2nd, 2023. And also, I should add, just for information purposes, the boundary, my name is Rob Moore. I'm with the County Attorney's Office, if you don't know me. And I provide legal advice to this Boundary Commission. The Boundary Commission is made up of 4 individuals, which you have so far, and then you to get together and decide on 3 additional ones, and that's why these are on your agenda today. So 2 of you are currently elected officials from the county, and 2 of you were selected by the Municipal Selection Committee, which is essentially a COG, and that was done in August, as I recall. I was there. And so again, the 4 of you get together and you choose 3 additional members. We thought we had 3 additional on the agenda prepared for that, but it doesn't sound like we do. So we're just at the 2 tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was going to introduce Mr. Moore in the beginning. I apologize.
Very good.
He's the one that's going to keep us out of trouble up here. So I'll take a motion on agenda item number 2.
I move that we approve Paul Raymond as a member of the Utah County Boundary Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second here.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 3. Approve or reject Alan Shepard as a member of the Utah County Boundary Commission for a staggered term. And his term will go until that first Monday in January of 2022. All in favor?
You need a
Or
motion?
excuse me. Yeah, we better have a motion, sorry.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Alan Shepard to be on the Boundary Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Could we, let's see, before we go to that, let's have one more agenda item number 4. Ratify the prior approval of Gary Ratcliffe as the chairman of the Utah County Boundary Commission. This will be until the first Monday of January of 2021, when I'll be retiring. So I will take a motion.
I move that we ratify the prior approval of Gary Ratcliffe as the chairman for the Utah County Boundary Commission until the first Monday in January 2021.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have Commissioner Shepherd and Commissioner Raymond join us up here, and we're going to have Alice from our county clerk's office quickly issue the oath of office. Maybe just, you want to do it right there or right back here? Okay, all right.
And when we're done, I'll have to sign these and I'll give you a copy of that. I state your name.
Alan Shepherd. We're all doing it?
No, just you.
Okay, just me.
Yeah, I've done everybody else.
All right.
Okay, so I state
I,
your
Gary Ratcliffe.
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office with fidelity.
the duties of my office with fidelity.
My doctors. So if I have you sign both of them, and then I will give you.
And while we're waiting for the benefit of the public, the last meeting we had with the Boundary Commission was in 2017. So this doesn't happen very often, which is why our board had to be reconstituted.
It's 2017, is that what it's
Yes, yeah. That is crazy.
Much cooler down there.
Thank you.
Would you, okay.
Okay, we welcome our newest members of this commission. Okay, next item on our business schedule is agenda item number 5. This commission should have received a copy of the proposed resolution amending written procedures governing electronic meetings. Now, we did that with the idea that down the road with COVID-19, we may see occasion when we may be forced to do that strictly or exclusively. So we need to get that adopted and into the record. Everybody had a chance to look at that? So
Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Moore again. Yeah, so in order to have an electronic meeting under the Open Public Meetings Act, you have to have adopted written procedures before that. Now, the governor suspended those. I have not checked if he reenacted those when he did his latest executive order. But in any event, you're all here. In the future, if one or more of you cannot be here, if we have a meeting, you could call in and we could notice it up as an electronic meeting so that you would not have to attend. And like you said, if it gets severe with COVID, where we can't any of you be here, then we would be able to do electronic meetings otherwise. So,
okay, thank you for
any
that.
questions about the resolution itself? It's the same resolution the county commission adopted and all other boards by the county, so you know.
Okay, I will call for a motion then to adopt that resolution.
I move that we approve the resolution amending the written procedures governing electronic meetings of the Utah County Boundary Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve that resolution language. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, one clarification to that motion. It's actually enacting these procedures, not amending them. We don't currently have any with the Boundary Commission, so you're actually enacting them, but it's the same concept, so.
Okay,
You approve the resolution. Thank you.
all right. Before we get into this, I'd like to read the public notice that went out. It's really brief. In accordance with Section 10-2-415 Utah Code Annotated 2020, the Utah County Boundary Commission will hold a public hearing on August 24, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the Utah County Administration Building to discuss whether the proposed Davis Family Trust annexation into Salem City, Utah, complies with the requirements of Sections 10-2-402 and 10-2-403 Utah Code Annotated 2020 and the Annexation Policy Plan of Salem City, conflicts with the Annexation Policy Plan of another municipality, and if the proposed Davis Family Trust annexation includes urban development, will have an adverse tax consequence on the remaining unincorporated area of Utah County. A copy of the protests of the Davis Family Trust annexation into Salem City, Utah are on file at the Utah County Public Works Office, dated August 5th, 2020. All right, there's several little things I'd like to address as quickly as I can before we get into the crux of why we're here. First of all, I want to cover the responsibilities of the Boundary Commission. So this is primarily for us sitting up here, but obviously those in the audience are allowed to listen in, since this is a public hearing. So there's only a couple primary things that pertain to our obligations here. Very simple, we allow those present an opportunity to speak. It is considered a public hearing, not a public meeting, so our attorney has basically advised us that anybody that would like to speak can speak. Now, at the conclusion of this public hearing, and based on state statute, the commission may, 1, approve the proposed annexation either with or without conditions. 2, make minor modifications to the proposed annexation and approve it either with or without conditions. Or 3, disapprove the proposed annexation. And then the other item is we're obligated under statute as a commission to issue a written decision on the annexation within 30 days of the conclusion of the public hearing. Then next I want to talk about the annexation standards, and this is, again, primarily for us sitting up here, but it's also, it can be of importance to those that are here to listen and to participate in this public meeting. There are, and I'm going to read this directly out of the statute, if I can find it here. This is in 10-2-415, number 8. In considering protests, this is what our responsibility is. In considering protests, the commission shall consider whether the proposed annexation, 1, complies with the requirements of sections 10-2-402 and 10-2-403 and the annexation policy plan of the proposed annexing municipality. B, conflicts with the annexation policy plan of another municipality. And lastly, if the proposed annexation includes urban development, will have an adverse tax consequence on the remaining unincorporated area of the county. Now, when we talk about sections 10-2-402 and 403, what we're talking about are components involving the public noticing requirements of that annexation, the noticing requirements of the annexation itself, the noticing requirements pertaining to this public hearing. It also translates into whether the proposal meets the accuracy standards relative to a platted boundary. Does the proposal create an island or peninsula? Does the proposal overlapping an adjoining municipality? Does the proposal fall within the municipality's annexation policy plan? And just for those of you aren't familiar with what an annexation policy plan is, I know our mayors up here do, but a city will prepare a plan of maybe where they want to go in the future, where they want to expand out to, and they are obligated by law not only to do that via official action as a municipality at some point in time in the creation of that plan. They are obligated to present that plan to the county. Then another item is, does the proposal compete with another municipality's policy plan? If so, has the noticing requirements been sufficient to allow a protest by that entity? Another component of the statute is the proposed annexation contiguous with itself. So in other words, it can't annex a little parcel here, another parcel here that's not contiguous with itself. So the annexation itself has to be contiguous within itself. And finally, is the proposed annexation contiguous with existing Salem city boundaries? So those are the components of what we, as a boundary commission, are to look at as to whether the components of the statute are complicit with that statute, with the annexation itself, or meet the provisions of the statute. Next item, really briefly, if I could.
Mr. Chairman, before you go there, can I just add one thing? And I appreciate you highlighting some of these important things. Let me just reference also, you did mention a minute ago that there are 3 basically decisions that the Boundary Commission can make: approve with conditions, modify, make a minor modification, and then approve the conditions or disapprove. And just so you know, this board is considered a quasi-judicial board. That was determined in the Kearns Tribune Court versus Salt Lake County Commission case in 2001, which means that you're not subject to all the requirements of deliberation in an open public meeting. You could deliberate in a closed session and make decisions. You don't have to make the decision in front of the public if you don't want to. That's at your call. That's what the case said in 2001. It's still good law, and it basically allows you to make those decisions if you want to deliberate. Because again, you're kind of like judges here, the 6 of you tonight. And so you're making these decisions like a judge would, not necessarily in front of the people. So
Okay.
just thought I'd highlight that for you.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. I was going to get to some of that here
Okay.
a little bit later, but I appreciate that anyway. That makes it more official when I hear it from you rather than me saying it. Another thing I'd like to do is entertain a motion here in a bit pertaining to the different items that we will officially enter into the public record. those items, and I'm just going to briefly list them really quickly so that everybody is aware. The first item is the annexation petition documents. The next item is the public notice of the annexation. Third item is the M. Davis Annex Addition Evaluation Map and Individual Criteria Evaluation Sheet. This evaluation is performed by a Utah County GIS staff, showing that the proposal meets the minimum criteria for annexation. Now, what that does is that evaluation will either highlight those components of the statute that it does meet, those that it may not meet. Another item is the 6 letters of protest that were submitted by the following entities in no particular order: Marvell, Tykeson. If any of these entities are here, would you please raise your hand just so we can see? Is there anybody representing Marvell, Tykeson? Okay, letter of protest from Kelly Haveron. Right there, okay. Travis and Amy Wilson. Don C. Wood. Lawrence and Marianne Corman. And David Conant. Okay, so 2 of the 6 protests are represented here. So those letters will be entered into the public record. All 6 of them. But those 2 that are here will have an opportunity to speak if you'd like. The 5th item entered in the public record is a letter of response to those protests written by a party representing the annexing entity. Is there a representative of the M. Davis annexation here? Right there. Okay. We'll enter that letter into the record. And number 6, a letter of response to the protest written by Salem City, by the city attorney. And he's here. A general vicinity map depicting the proposed area to be annexed. Number 8 is a map depicting the proposed annexation area relative to the existing Salem City boundary and the parcels protesting this annexation. Number 9, the notice of the public hearing pertaining to this meeting that was published in both the Salem City on the Salem City website as well as Utah County government website. And number 10, the published agenda of this public hearing. And I have given all those documents to our county clerk, but make it noted, and we'll do that by motion. We want to officially enter those documents in.
Mr. Chair, I move that we enter all documents that you have reviewed into the record.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. These 10 items be entered into the public record.
Mr. Chairman, can I clarify that motion?
Okay,
Is that that would be for all 6 protests, correct?
yes,
The record of all 6
all
protests?
6.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, finally, the last thing before we move into the meeting, further into the meeting, and our county attorney representative there has already touched upon it, but we want to address again just briefly the procedures. So we'll proceed in a minute with items 6 through 11 in the order presented on the agenda. And I think members of this Boundary Commission have received those letters, and hopefully have had a chance to review those. And as those protesting entities come to the microphone, we'd ask that you state your name clearly for the record. And then remain standing there for this body to have an opportunity to ask questions of you. And then after we get to that point, we will hear from representatives of the M. Davis annexation property and allow you some time. And again, state your name for the record and allow us an opportunity after your comments to ask you any questions that we may have. And finally, we'll request the city representative here, give him some time, and we'll kind of go through that process. Once we get to that point, we'll call for any additional public comment. If there's anybody beyond those entities that are being represented, we will be obligated to let you talk. I don't know if there's anybody here in addition. Maybe there's not. Okay. All right, we will give you a little bit of time. What we're going to try to do to keep this meeting within the confines of getting over in a timely fashion, we'd ask that those representing those three entities, the protesting entities, up to 10 minutes each. The entity representing the Davis annexation, 10 minutes, and the city 10 minutes, and all others maybe up to 3 minutes. Okay. So let's go ahead in that order with, we'll start with okay, you in the very back. Are you representing one of the?
I'm next door to the property, so we never submitted the
Okay. So we'll let you have 2 or 3 minutes to speak if you'd like at the end. Okay. Again, Marvell Tyson is not represented here. Is that correct? Okay. So we'll begin with Kelly Haveron. Just state your name for the record.
This is a little weird. I'm actually Amy Wilson, but Kelly has asked me to be here for her also. Is that all? Okay. My concern with the annexation is where we're at in the city county is we're just a block, basically, of county property, just on the east side of Woodland Hills Drive. And the corner of this block wants to annex into the city. The other letters that you received are also citizens that live on this block. And none of us want to annex into the city, obviously. And we're concerned about several things. I guess the biggest thing is we would just like that block to remain the 5-acre zoning that it is now. We just don't want the zoning to change. We all bought property and moved to that area for the county property and for the larger acreage lots. We'd just like it to remain that way. We feel like there are safety concerns. Our roads are very narrow. There's no curb and gutter. There's no sidewalk. The middle school is across the street of the Davis property on 10,000 south of the county. And now we have kids walking our roads to go to school, which is not a safe thing for them to do. We have several kids on our road, which is 9800 south, that has to go down 9800, 4th east, and then down the 10,000 road, which all of the, we have big trucks going up there all the time to the gravel pit. big diesels full of loads. And it's just not a safe thing to be adding more homes in that area where we don't have the infrastructure for them. And so we're just concerned about that, and I would just really love you to keep the 5-acre zoning on that property.
Okay. Do you have any questions? You're located on 9800 South, right?
Yes. So our backyard butts up to the 10,000 South people.
But your actual residence is fronts 9800?
Yes,
Yeah.
9,800.
Mr. Chair, one additional item that this protester may want to address is, I know they're representing Kelly Haveron. Under 10-2-407, in order to protest an annexation petition in a county that's not Salt Lake County, you have to either be a legislative body of a governing board of an affected entity, which basically means a governmental entity, or an owner of rural real property, which is a defined term. So that's rural real property. And in order to do that, you have to have at least an acre. It's been represented by other parties before that this Kelly Haveron's property is less than an acre.
Is it less than an acre over there?
And so that might be subject to a motion to dismiss, just be aware of that.
Now, your property's next door to that,
But we
though, right?
own the property that Kelly is living in.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we own 5 1/4 acres right next door, and then I thought it was more than an acre. Where'd he go? I think it's 1.5 acres that she's on, and we own that property that
Okay.
she lives at.
Okay.
Okay, so theoretically, or not theoretically, technically,
We own
Kelly-
more than an acre.
Kelly could not legally protest this because of that
Okay.
definition of rural property. You folks possibly could.
Correct.
Okay.
But in addition to that, there was a question of the acreage. My understanding that the acreage was .7, something like .70 or something of that nature.
I don't think
But
that's
she's
true,
addressed
but-
that. That's fair.
Okay,
And this was, I think part of this was raised by the attorney for Salem City in his letter. Just be aware of that.
now, again, just, I'm not saying that eventually you folks will be annexed. Maybe you will at some point down the road, maybe you won't. But the street the new school sits on, I believe, is improved, is it not?
Only part of it, only where the school
Yeah,
is.
right.
That's it.
But eventually, if different parcels come in, I'm sure that will naturally take care of itself along 10,000.
Possibly.
And that's obviously gonna be a responsibility of the city. Take care of that. That'll be, their responsibility to deal with at that point in time.
Just on 10,000 though, because that's interesting.
Yeah.
We brought that up to the city as we went to that meeting, and they said all these safety issues are county problems because they're county roads. And we live on a county block.
Okay. Yeah, well, like I say, maybe down the road, once the city does expand, you'll probably see 9,800 improved. Again, that'll be up to the city to do, but I'm anticipating that most likely would happen.
Do you guys have your own sewer and water, or do you get it from the city?
We don't have sewer from the city.
Or septic?
We have a septic, but we do have water. We were grandfathered in where this property was.
Do people around you have wells, or is everybody?
Most everyone else has wells on our block.
Okay.
I think we're the end of the line for the city. We are, actually. We're the very last house.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next. I'm losing my list here. I apologize.
I think your list is, you're on number 8, and it's Travis and Amy Wilson.
Wilson, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so, sorry, my name's Travis Wilson. So I appreciate your time to hear us, and mostly I'm very interested in this process. I've seen all these rural areas get gobbled up by cities, and I don't know what interest the counties have in this or what say they have in this, but we feel like, as my wife explained, we moved to our area 6 years ago, and just for that reason, for the rural area and the large lots, and all of our neighbors feel the same way. We want to keep our area like it is, but we understand also that everybody has their rights as landowners, and we have voiced our opposition with the city, and we feel like we don't have any representation. I mean, we went to that area for a certain reason, and we're in the county, so the city doesn't really want to listen to us, and we just feel like we don't have a representation with the county either, because I just don't understand what the interest is to let the land get annexed in, or if you have any rights that way, or what the county does there. So I'm kind of interested in that. I'm just not really, I don't understand that part of it. And then, so as my wife explained the traffic around the road, the problem is like the new school they put in and this new subdivision, people access those areas from our roads, and they don't even have shoulders on them. And so it is a big safety concern to us. We've had a lot of close calls on those roads. I personally have to pull my truck off to the side of the road if I see a semi or a bus or anything like that coming. And the buses come up and down our roads, big trucks come up and down our roads, and as soon as that school starts, everybody, as you know, drops their kids off now. They loop right around that block. 90% of their travel around that block is unimproved, only the area in front of the school. And so that's one of our concerns also. So like I say, I'm interested in the process. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. We would love to do anything we can to oppose it, because we want to keep our way of life there, and it's going away, and we don't feel like we have any say in that. So
Okay.
thank you.
Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Okay.
I would like to just make a follow-up comment to the school, the concerns with the school proposed annexation. That it looks like to me, from the location of that school and these 10 acres that are being annexed, that those children that will be increasing, if you will, the traffic in the area, those children will be literally walking across the street to school. They won't be bused, they won't be driving. So the annexation itself, in my thought process, doesn't appear like it's going to cause the problem. Now, I'm not saying that it won't increase traffic in all the roads in the general area going different places, but the relationship of the school itself doesn't appear to be a concern in my logic. Any comments? Okay, hearing none, maybe we'll hear from the representative of the Davis annexation property.
I do think, Commissioner, that you probably want to go down each protest to make sure there's not someone who's representing Don C. Wood or Lawrence and Mary Cormer. I know you kind of already did that, but just to make sure that there's no one else representing them there today.
Oh. Okay, can you hang on just a moment? You folks, are you
Okay.
representing one of the, okay,
Thank you.
all right. So is there anybody else representing directly any of those protesting entities? Okay. Go ahead.
My name's Paul Timothy. I'm a professor of history at Snow College, and I struggled this morning to lecture with this mask, so I hope you can understand me. I think there's been an erroneous comment made that there were no improvements of curb and gutter. Mr. Smith, who is buying the property from the Davis Trust, was approached by the city asking if he would donate land at no remuneration to put in curb and gutters so they could put in the utilities. He did that. They didn't pay him a cent. He donated it free of charge. And so as a result of that, we now have pressurized irrigation, we have domestic water, we have sewage and power. And that's a result of his donation. Now the curb and gutter is in there already. The objective is to develop that property into 25 lots. At the current time, it's zoned at R15. We have approached the city asking if we could downzone that, and they rejected that. So all the lots will be at least a third of an acre. The preliminary plat provides for 25 lots in the area. If you assess maybe 2 cars per lot, that's an additional 50 cars. The school district has assured me that they will have about 21 buses going in there in the morning and 21 buses picking the kids up at night. They have a capacity of 70 students per bus. Those students who live 1.5 miles away from the school are entitled to ride the bus. In addition to that, you've got maybe another, we estimate maybe 500 students who will be transported by vehicle to the school. That leaves 500, and these are pure estimates because I really can't confirm this. There are at least another 500 who will walk to the school. The plans are to put a semaphore across Woodland Hills Drive with a crosswalk there for the kids to get through. The kids that are, the majority of the children by far, will never walk on 10,000 South. Woodland Hills is the main artery there. 10,000 South simply feeds into it. As far as the ambience, well, the traffic, it's a no-brainer. You've got 50 cars, you've got almost more buses than that. At the current time, this lot is used as a feeder lot. He has over 100 cattle there right now on 10 acres of ground. Semi-trucks come in there with loads of hay to feed those cattle. And so the traffic, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. The additional 50 cars, assuming that each home has 2 cars and each car is driven each day, 50 compared to the bus traffic and the vehicular traffic that will transport the kids, which is private, is minimal compared to what this will, the new development will offer. The ambience of the property, have you all read the letter that I wrote? Well, then you're aware of the fact of what the ambience is. Are you familiar with the property? Have you driven by it? There are old buildings on that property that have old tractors, implements that haven't seen the light of day for years. There's nothing attractive about that property right now. The new developer we'll be putting upscale homes in that area that will make it much more attractive than it is today. From a health concern, it's also going to be more attractive to the community. We're right across the school. Undoubtedly, that area is one day going to have homes in it, and we feel the time is right now. So, with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Is this part of the Harry Davis part? Is that the Davis
It
family?
is.
And where is this located compared to where their pond and amphitheater is? Is that a few blocks away?
Yeah, it
It's
isn't.
not part of it, but is it close to that? I'm just trying to familiarize myself with it.
No, it is not. There are no ponds around there, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's quite a ways away.
If you're acquainted with the Ribe Homes, that's who wants to develop this property. If you've seen their homes, most of their homes are sitting on a half-acre lot, though. These will be a third-acre lot. You can't afford to put an entry home onto a third of an acre and make any money as a developer. These will be upscale homes. The developer will be the ones to put the sidewalk in. Their curb and gutter is there already. And it's there because the current owner donated land to the city so they could do that and put the utilities in.
So you have sanitary sewer right there.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
guessing because of the sanitary sewer and water, everything's right there.
It
Power.
is, right on the corner. Pressurized irrigation, sewer, and water, and electricity will all be there.
Okay.
I thought it was quite gratuitous of the seller who is selling that property to donate it when he knew he could have got money out of it by the sale. But he did it for the community, so I thought it was a good move.
Is that strip of property asphalted then?
Boy, I'm sorry,
Is it
I'm
asphalted?
empathizing with my students right now.
Okay. Is that strip asphalted?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Oh, the strip that was donated?
Yes.
No, but it does have a curb and gutter.
Okay, but it has.
It'll have a sidewalk on it. The developer will put a sidewalk there. And the sidewalk will be on Woodland Hills Drive as well as 10,000 South. Now, obviously, the sidewalk will be to the extent of his property. He won't do it beyond that. But that's a pretty healthy distance.
Won't most cities make them put more curb and gutter in just to accommodate the traffic in that? I mean, couldn't the city do that if that's a?
Could they, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Couldn't the city have them put more curb and gutter in instead of just in front of the property? Would that help them, the neighbors maybe buy into it if they had more? I mean, the developers want to do something with this. Why don't they jump in and appease the neighbors by, putting in more curb and gutter if that's what they want to? They need sidewalk.
The curb and gutter is in right now.
But I mean, in front of these people's homes, is that where you're putting it in?
They're,
just a
well,
Okay.
if I might interject, that these peoples are fronted on 9800, which is
So they're
the
around
next,
the corner. Okay.
next block up to the north there.
Anything else? Well, we feel that this is inevitable, frankly. The school is right there. The demand for housing is going to be there with the school. The school will house about 1,400 students, from what I'm told. So we're not going to impede traffic in that area with that many students. It's going to happen. And once again, I would emphasize that with maybe 50 cars, that is very, very minimal compared to what we're going to see with the accommodation of the students in the school.
I just have one comment. I think that your assumption of 50 cars is probably really low because they're gonna have visitors and friends, and there's gonna be a lot more traffic than just the two vehicles at the house coming in and out.
That's possibly true.
I think that's very true, because we lived in a new neighborhood, and as soon as kids turn 16, you got 3 and 4 cars there.
Yeah.
And so the 2 car is basically, that works for now, but in 3 years, that's not gonna be there. There's gonna
You
be
know,
traffic.
regardless, the main traffic is on Woodland Hills. That's the main artery. As you may well know, from north to south, you know, that goes the whole distance of the city. 10,000 South is simply a feeder into that area. So you've got some pretty heavy traffic there right now. And the amount of traffic that the students are going to bear is minimal compared to what this subdivision is going to bring in.
I think the school is gonna bring a lot of traffic. I live by a school, and you'll be surprised. It's good
Boy, I'm
during the
having
summer.
a difficult time hearing.
I live by a school. You'll be surprised at the traffic that they bring all year, because there's always people going there. That's just, they make traffic.
Oh, yeah, and you can't deny it, and you can't get away from it.
No, you can't. But it's something that you can maybe prevent for a little while.
We just need to keep in mind that school's already there and really doesn't have anything directly to do with this annexation. That school is existing right now. So just keep that in the back of your minds.
Well, thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, are there others here that would like to speak? You just come to the front and state your name.
My name is Mark Warren. I'm the property owner would be just east of the Davis property there. Our fence line, the fence line between us is the boundary line between my property and Mr. Smith's property. When I look at the map, I mean, it makes sense to annex that property in. It's right there on Woodland Hills Drive. So am I opposed to it? Yeah, because I don't want houses right there. But who would? I mean, when you move to that area, you like the open space. That's why you move there. My question is, there's property on just west of Woodland Hills Drive, just across the street. That's county. You're kind of building an island right there, in my opinion, by annexing this property in. I don't know if you've seen a map of the area, but why is that property not being annexed in before this property? Would be my first question.
Well, that, we don't have any say over
But
that. That's,
Okay, yeah, that's fine. But the county's got property right there that slowly
when you
is
say
becoming
county
an
has
island.
property, you're talking about unincorporated. We're not talking about the county owning property there.
I believe it's county property. It's
Is
not
it in-
Salem
Is
City
it property in the road itself?
What's that?
Is it property within the road itself?
It's on the other side of Woodland Hills Drive, on the west side.
Big triangle on the west side, Gary.
Big
Oh.
triangle of property right there. The Salem Canal Road is the southern boundary.
Uh-huh.
Woodland Hills Drive is the eastern boundary.
Well, that,
And that, I mean,
yeah.
the
that-
county's gonna have an island of property kind of right in that area.
Well, this proposal here does not create that island.
It kind of starts to.
Well, it doesn't, by law, by statute,
Okay.
it doesn't. There's a definition of an island,
Okay,
there's a definition of a peninsula. It doesn't create it based on the statute.
okay. I need to review that statute, but an island to me is just a piece of property kind of out in the middle of the city. You know, I don't know. It's funny that this property is being annexed in before that property. And that's, and if it's legal, it's fine. I have no say in it. But just was a concern to me that the county's gonna have property in the middle of all this. And is the county gonna take care of that property? You know, why is that this property being able to annex in before that one? You know, that's my main question. Then my other thing is too, is I've got a hay farm. I've got a small acreage of hay that I grow there, and my family does too in that area. And I've been called several times, or the sheriff's been called on us several times for cutting our hay or baling our hay in the middle of the night. And to me, that's gonna be a problem, having 25 homes right there with me cutting hay or baling hay at 2 in the morning. I'm assuming there's laws to protect farmers that they're able to farm their land in the middle of the night. But we've been shut down before because of complaints. And that's another main concern for me is, am I gonna get called on every time I go out to cut my hay?
I've seen like when plats are recorded, and this might be a good idea, the city got put on there, that they're subject to the sounds and smells of rural life.
Right.
Now, so the people buying in will know what they're getting.
Yeah, and that needs to be made absolutely clear to them.
And they put that on the plat. I've seen that on plats before.
So
Jeff,
that,
let me address that. That's for ag protection areas. And so
I've seen it on city plats that aren't in.
there are ag protection areas within cities as well.
Okay. I
In
know
in
that.
order to put that in the plat, that's really what you should do. If you're interested, you should look at an ag protection. That would potentially protect you. There are requirements for it. You may not meet those requirements, but you need to look and see if you would qualify for an ag protection area. You can then petition with the community development here in the county to do so.
okay, and that protects me against getting a ticket.
It protects you from doing your normal practices, normal reasonable farming practices, including at night. It does protect you for that. There are other protections also with ag protection, but it sounds like your property's not currently in that. And so
I
you might want to
wouldn't
look
know.
at that
I mean,
and see if you qualify.
It's just in Greenbelt, and so I don't know what the qualifications are
Greenbelt
for
is for
that.
tax purposes.
Right, right,
And
so,
ag protection is to protect your property so that you, when you do your
Okay.
farming practices, that you can be protected for those things. It protects you from eminent domain, which means that if the county wanted to come in and take your property, they couldn't without some additional hurdles. It also has some additional protections. It does grandfather you or ties you to the current ordinance at the time you qualify, at the time that's approved, excuse me. And it also protects you from being forced into annexation.
okay,
So you might want to take a look at it.
yeah.
But, yeah, that's.
I don't know if I have enough acreage to
That's
qualify,
probably
and I
gonna
don't
be
know
your
what the
issue.
acreage qualification is for that, but,
I believe it's about 40 acres.
yeah.
If
Yeah,
you could-
it's
if
just,
you could
it's
tie
just a
into
small
neighbors.
5-acre farm.
You can tie into neighbors, it's about it.
Okay,
You could look at to do that.
all right, well, and then I don't know if it's, I mean, if it is annexed in, these houses go in, is there any fence ordinance or anything like that the developer would need to establish between the city property and the county at all? Along our fence line?
Okay, say that again, are there?
Like a well-built sturdy fence,
It's up to the city.
for the subdivision, to divide the subdivision from my property. Because I'm gonna, eventually I wanna put a few cows back there and stuff like
yeah.
that on my property. I don't want them to get out and go over into the subdivision and,
Yeah, you probably want to sit down with the city.
because right now there's a fence there and it's holding his 100 head of cows in. So I would want at least something reasonable, put in there, because I'm sure that fence will be taken out once the developer starts putting homes in. And so I don't know if there's anything the county has, any laws or anything like that, I don't know, that would require a developer to do something like that.
Can that be in an annexation agreement?
No, so the county has, this is Rob Moore, county attorney's office. The county has a fence-in ordinance and a fence-out ordinance. A fence-in ordinance is for any place in the valley. So you would be, as a county, as your property in the county, you're required to fence your property
Okay,
for your cows. If your cows get out, you're liable for those.
Right.
If you're up in the canyons, then it's a fence out, so that's different.
Okay.
But, so if you're still in the county and you have cows, it's your responsibility to fence.
okay,
But as was said by members of the commission, the city itself may have requirements for an annexation and a development that occurs within that annexation for fencing.
Yeah, okay. These are some of the questions I have, but those are my concerns, and thanks for listening. Any other questions for me?
Yeah, I have a sore tooth. Can you
Do
help
ya?
me? Yeah.
Well,
Last
come
time
on.
I saw you, you
Come-
had your fingers in my mouth.
I
so
know.
Good to see you.
I hope you didn't talk bad about me. Hopefully you didn't hurt too bad.
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead. Did we forget you on?
I didn't let you forget me. I jumped in. Thanks for,
I apologize.
okay. Thanks for having me here today, and I just want to thank for each of you to take time out of your schedule to do this public service. I wanted, so my role.
Vaughn, would you state your name for the record?
I apologize. Vaughn Piquel, Salem City Attorney. My role in the annexation was to review the petition with the city recorder, just for compliance with the state statute. And so that's what I did. I don't come here to advocate for the annexation, but rather just to give you my analysis. And I submitted a letter that did some of that. I hope you mentioned that as one of the documents you received. So, so first of all, I think that the annexation meets the requirements as to sections 10.2.402 and 10.2.403, that it's one 10-acre piece with one owner. So that meets 100% of the area, 100% of the value, 100% of the rural real property, and it also does not leave a peninsula. There was talk about the triangle on the west side of Woodland Hills Drive. That's private property within the county's jurisdiction, I think is the best way to characterize that. It's not county-owned property. It appears to be private property. I applied that peninsula rule, which I admit is difficult to do, but I came up with it not being a peninsula. It's not one that was created by this annexation, and I don't even think it leaves one after the annexation. So it's not a peninsula. It's not an island because it's not bounded on all sides. It's open to other county property. The annexation is contiguous to itself, and it's also contiguous to Salem city boundary. I looked at the protests, and in the statute, it specifies that they need to address the statutory criteria, like I just mentioned, those things with area and value and things like that. None of the protests seemed to do that. They gave rather their opinions about land use and growth and traffic and zoning and development patterns, what they would like to see, but those are not elements or criteria in the statute. They're important, and I think the city's job, if it is annexed, is to consider those things as they decide what type of zoning, what type of infrastructure to require, and things like that. So that would happen if it came into the city. There was a question about whether or not why this piece on the east side of Woodland Hills Drive would be annexed before the triangle on the west. And I think the answer is just pretty simple. It's just the timing of what petition came first. The petition of the Davises came first, and if it meets the criteria, it should be annexed. The people on the west side could similarly submit a petition, but they haven't done that to date. But they certainly could do that. I wanted to also clarify the one question that came up earlier about the Kelly Haveron protest. My point in my letter was to point out that she is not an owner of rural real property, not so much the area, how much area or density that she has, but rather because she's not an owner of real property, she is not entitled to object or file a protest petition. So I'd recommend that one not be considered. So for those reasons, and my analysis and working with the city recorder, it appears that the annexation petition does meet the statutory requirements, and I'd recommend that it be approved. Any questions for me?
Commissioner? Asking questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, this annexation met all, Salem City annexation requirements, right?
Yes, yes.
And the county is bought off on the annexation process?
I think that's what you're here to do tonight, is to determine
Okay.
whether it meets the,
Would answer the protests on
Right.
that, okay?
Yeah, the, the county has looked at this, and we find nothing within the statute, as I touched upon earlier, that would preclude this annexation from happening. We look at these things, we don't look at these things arbitrarily. We have a set of guidelines based on the statute that we look at in the evaluation that's produced. If we find an issue, our GIS staff will reach out to the city and tell them our concerns. That was not the case with this particular annexation. We didn't find any issues with islands or peninsulas. We found that everything was timely. It just met the provisions of the statute to the letter. So that was our findings.
Well, and so really tonight's the raw ground, taking the city hat off, looking at density, and that's really up to Salem once, or the county if it stayed in the county to grant density. Tonight's just looking at whether or not they meet the criteria to be annexed. But I did have a question. There's a lot of talk about the school and that. Do you know if there was a traffic study done? I know when they build them in our community, we require intensive traffic studies that would be taken into account as you develop.
Unfortunately, I don't know personally, because I'm new to this role as the city attorney. I've only been there a few months. Our city engineer is here. He probably knows. If you want to ask Mr. Bruce Ward, I can't imagine that one wasn't performed. That's my experience too, is that with a school that size, they would do that.
What was the staff's recommendation from the city?
My recommendation to the city recorder is that the annexation petition meets the requirements of the code, and so that it should be certified as a petition.
Like the staff's good with them coming in and everything? That's what my question, not legality. What was the staff's vote? Did they vote? I mean, sometimes they have their own meetings. How was that represented from the city's point?
To my knowledge, I don't know if we've had a meeting about it. I mean, they just submitted the petition. That triggers the process of.
They haven't submitted like what they're gonna do with the property? You haven't seen
Not,
any of
not
that?
to my knowledge. I don't know. Again,
Don't
it
you guys
might
do
be
that
because
first? I thought when
I'm new.
annexations come in, you had to have a
The
plan.
council has approved it, right?
The council accepted the petition for further study, and
But zoning to come in under.
that would be up to the council. I don't know if they've determined that.
Shouldn't these people know that? Or, I
I
mean,
don't think so. That's not part of the criteria in doing this petition process.
it just seems out of line, like, we're
That's
gonna annex
the,
you, but we're not
I
gonna tell you
think that's
what.
the legislative prerogative of the city councils to determine what zoning applies to a property.
Well, they could change the zoning after it's annexed
Absolutely, they could.
without the consulting the other people around.
Right, because they're the legislative body, they follow their rezoning process. Just that happens all the time. in
No, I know, but
communities.
usually it comes in under a zone, you know,
Right,
and,
and
and
I'm
we're
sure
gonna
they
do that.
will.
You guys are kind of like, okay, we're gonna annex you, we'll flip a coin almost to see what we're gonna zone you at.
I'm sure
and then
the
we're gonna
council
zone you with that.
will do a zoning designation once they have a decision on the annexation.
No, as citizens, I would like to know, if I mean, this happened to me, like, you don't know what's coming. You really don't. You could get R15s, you could get R18, you could get R15. How do you know the city won't come down and rezone you to an 8,000 square foot? And I've even seen them go to 50-foot frontage with 100, I mean, you know, you never know what the city's gonna do. So you kind of people in a bind that are like trying to figure out this annexation because the city's not forthright and tell them what they're gonna do. I mean, the developer and the city need to come together.
Yeah.
Let people know, because they don't know I mean,
My
like we're
understanding
hiding
is
stuff from
it
them.
is intended to be a 15,000 square foot lot, the R15 that the petitioner mentioned.
He won't go under that.
Pardon?
They'll keep to that? Is that what people want?
I can't bind the city council. I don't know what the council's gonna do. That's, like I said, that's their legislative prerogative, is the legislative body. They get to decide the zoning.
And the city councils can't bind future city councils if it meets the guidelines.
Correct.
We're
I've seen 'em
stuck,
like, you
because
can
we
come
brought
in with
property
this.
in all sorts of different ways with intent to develop it, and it gets sold 3 times.
Yeah.
And gets
It's
rezoned.
gonna get flipped 3 or 4
We
times.
didn't do it to hide it. It was a public meeting, but it didn't come in the way we envisioned it 10 years ago.
No, I know, I've been involved in a lot of this, and I've seen blind sides, basically. And, you know, for the people to come in and spend the time here, they need to know what's going on. They need to know what Fieldstone's gonna do, what other people are gonna do, what you're gonna put in, and, you know,
And I think Commissioner Smith, I think what they're talking about
yeah.
here.
No, I know, I'm off on a
It-
different tangent.
No, no,
sorry.
you're okay. It's gonna be up to the city council
Yeah.
ultimately. And so these folks that are here today, that's really where they ought to have their discussion. Because the criteria that you're addressing today is not the density issue. That issue is gonna be addressed at the city council level if it gets annexed. And at that point, as Mr. Pickell said, it's a legislative decision of the city council. So they probably have a default zone that they bring property in, unless they do a development agreement or some other thing, other mechanism. But you've already heard from the developer here today, the representative of the developer, saying that they're looking at 30-acre lots. And so, but that could change. And that really, the folks that are here ought to spend time talking to the city council about what they would like to see happen with that property if it gets annexed. Because that's really where the decisions are made. You're deciding on certain criteria that's in the statute, whether it should be annexed or not annexed. And you're pretty limited on what you decide.
But
here
what
today.
hurts is they're in the county and not in the city. Their voices should be heard, but as a city council, that could take it into effect, that you don't live within the city.
That is true. And
You are not the city council's
Correct.
constituents, okay?
that is true.
So that decision, there will be a public hearing, whether it be with the planning commission or the council. You can attend, but they're gonna ask you what your address is. And if you don't live within the city, they may take in consideration your opinion, but maybe not.
Got a question for the attorney. So the approval with conditions, is that something that the commission can put as a condition?
As far as the density,
As
no.
far as changing the zoning at later
No,
dates?
no,
or-
you wouldn't be able to address that
Nothing
as
like
far as
that.
that. So what your typically conditions are that you're addressing is if you have a larger annexation and maybe there's 7 or 8 property owners and you have one property owner in that annexation who does not want to be a part of it. So what you could do is approve the annexation and carve out that one property. And previous boundary commissions have done that before. You can't add to it because that wasn't part of the original, but you could take away from it. So those are some of the kind of conditions. I think it'd have to be conditions that are tied to the statute. You know, those kinds of things. But you couldn't bind a city as to what density it's gonna be at this point. That's beyond your purview, I think. I think you'd have to let the city do that.
Just they've got valid points, you know, where they're
Oh.
county residents, and there's just, if there was some way to help give them some additional protections, it would be nice, maybe.
I think
Probably the
you
wrong
could
body.
though, well, you couldn't make it a condition. I think you could give an opinion that it gets sent to the city. Yeah, as to, if you have a certain opinion, I mean, and whether that's considered or not by the city, that's up to them, but.
Any other questions for me?
Anybody?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Before we close,
Can I address the zoning?
Part of this.
We're really not here for that purpose, but if you want some clarification, I think I can help you with that.
okay, go ahead. If it'll help clarify here.
Well, that's all I'm doing. We ask if there was any
Just have him
possibility.
state his name again, your name.
Paul Timothy. We asked if there was any possibility of the downzoning. And the response was, you might get 2 lots downzoned if it accommodated the utility some way. So it may go down as low as 10,000 on 2 of the 25 lots. But we will not give you any further downzoning. They cut us right off there. So we're not anticipating that at all.
Okay, anybody else that would like to speak before we close this public hearing? Okay, seeing none. Again, we have the option after we close the public hearing of granting the annexation without conditions, or granting it with conditions, denying the annexation. What else was there, Mr. Attorney? That it?
That's it, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
basically, you hit the 3 of them.
So we need a motion, I guess, probably to officially close the,
So made.
okay, we have a motion to close this public hearing.
Second?
We have a second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, I just want to speak my opinion here. And I'm not going to try to steer anybody one direction or another, but I have empathy for those here that are in protest of this action, for the simple reason that I grew up on Main Street in South Orem in the 1950s when it was nothing but a gravel road. I had fruit orchards all around me. That's where I learned, that was my first job. I picked cherries and fruit for 3 cents a pound when I was 7 years old. It was a fun place to grow up. And I've seen that just go bonkers to the point where I can't even stand to go out and visit my 90-year-old mother anymore. Can't stand the traffic, can't stand the congestion. I'm a small town boy. So I understand that side of it totally. But I also understand the rights of citizens to do with the property as they want to do it, as long as it fits the statute, and as long as things can be worked out, as long as the cities will work things out the best they can with the rural citizens around them. As long as they listen to them and try to work things out. But again, with this board, with this commission, it comes down to, are the components of the statute of this annexation met, or are they not? So that's my 2 cents. If anybody else wants to voice something, they can now, and we're open for motions.
I'd like to say a few things as well. The question came up about the roads and the safety. Cities don't build roads. They maintain them. And to get your roads improved, the city or the county is going to require a developer to do it. And then they will turn that property, that road over to whether it's the county or the city to maintain. Property rights, as Chairman Ratliff mentioned, everyone that owns property has rights with that property. And I know sometimes I have a question about my neighbors, all the time, but they have rights. And as long as they're within those rights, they can do what they want to do with their property. Also, there's a question about taxes. Would this increase these protesters' taxes with this annexation? I didn't get an answer to that. Maybe Rob, can you answer that?
The third criteria is, does it impact the county in receiving these taxes? So I think that criteria was really put into place for Salt Lake County, which has been more of a, they act more like a city in a lot of ways. I think you probably realize that. But if it has a negative impact on the county receiving taxes, then that could be a ground to deny the annexation.
But it doesn't.
There may or may not have been any information provided about that, yes.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, I would entertain any more comments or motions from this commission. Now, we do have the chance, the opportunity, if we want further discussion, as the public hearing is officially closed, we can dismiss the meeting. We can talk about it and make a decision, take things under advisement with legal counsel. That's one option that we have.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Rob Moore again. You could make a decision tonight. You could make a motion, have motions made, and decide on those kind of things tonight, and then direct me to draft findings and conclusions to support your decision. That's one option. You could, as mentioned earlier, you could take it under advisement and not issue a decision tonight, and but give me some direction on which way you're kind of leaning, so I can start drafting something. Or the third way you could do, as you said, is you could say, thank you for coming tonight. We're going to go ahead and deliberate, and we'll excuse the public from this. Those are at least three options that you have. You could also continue this, but you have to make a decision within 30 days, a written decision. So we do have some time constraints.
I think just comments on it is, having watched my city grow from 200 people to 30,000 people, it's tough to watch county land get annexed in and farmland get annexed in. We had one large landowner bring in 3,000 acres, and they got granted some densities that were a little bit higher. So I get where you're coming from on that. And I think that's really a key piece to work with the city council on, because they're the legislative body that does the zoning, the roads, with the developer and things like that. But I think tonight, as a commission, we're looking to see, does it meet the state criteria? It's not an arbitrary decision on our part. It's does it meet it or not by state statute. So I think we could go forward tonight without making everybody wait longer.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion. What would be your motion?
I will move that we approve the annexation based on the fact that it meets all state criteria, and that we also send a recommendation to Salem City Council to work with the residents and listen to some of their concerns, and so that they can address what they can. I know it's not binding on our part, but I would like to see us send a recommendation to Salem City. I think they would do that anyways.
Okay,
Would that also include that you direct the legal staff to prepare findings and conclusions supporting this decision tonight
Yes.
within those 30 days and submit it to all of you?
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
amended.
Thank you.
okay.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have all opposed but one. Commissioner Smith, oh, all in favor, is that what I said? I'm sorry. I'm tongue-tied. Okay, only one opposed. And majority in favor, with Commissioner Smith opposing. All right, this will conclude our Boundary Commission meeting. We thank you for being here, and have a good trip home. Thank you.
We'll do a motion to adjourn then. Let's do a motion
Oh,
to adjourn.
yeah, sorry. We need a motion to
I
adjourn.
move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Let's adjourn.
Thank you. And I'll get you something probably within the next, hopefully within the next week.